Outros are hard, especially when you just broke your prop. I never know what to do with my hands. So, hi, I'm Hawk. Today we are going to finish Harlock's Gravity Saber. There's a couple things we're going to have to adjust because layer shifts and resin parts and all kinds of things. So let me pull you and show you what we're working on today. Alright, first off, my resin printer works like a hot damn. Works perfect. Super happy with all my resin parts, right? There's a bunch of them. But it's not a big resin printer, right? It's a standard one. The bell doesn't fit on my printer. So I had to ask a friend to print it, and his layer shifted. I could take it to the bandsaw and cut it at this point and refix it, but I think I'm just going to mess with it till it pops off. I've been messing with it already. I got it most of the way. I wanted to say that a little bit for just us. Hey, look at that. Right off. Easy. So, layer shifts happen all the time. It's real easy for a printer to lose steps and shift over. It's also real easy to fix. Let me show you how I'm going to do that. All I'm going to do, put a lot of glue. First, put on my glasses. There we go. So now all I'm going to do is use some standard CA glue. Put it all on the edge. This isn't really a load-bearing part, so I'm not terribly worried about it. It's also going to be covered in glazing, putty, all kinds of stuff. I'm probably going to heat it to melt everything together. So I can see by looking at this, I don't know if I can turn it towards you, that there's light gaps in here all along this edge. I just needed to hold it long enough for me to flood it with glue, which it isn't. So, masking tape. So now since I have a small wall here, I'm going to wall the rest of the edge off just so I can put some glue down there. Let it do its thing. Alright, so now the tape's going to act as a barrier. When I dump a bunch of glue in here, it's all going to seep into the low spots, connect everything together. I'm probably going to have to do this 2 or 3 times, but not that big of a deal. So now I just leave it, let it cure. While it's curing, I'm going to go and grab the shaft we're going to use for this one. So this is going to cure. Let's see in a couple of minutes. Seconds for you, minutes for me. Things that have already fallen can't fall again. So, glue has had time to dry. Let's peel this tape off and see where we're at. Luckily, I'm not terribly worried about how clean it comes off, because I'm probably going to hit it with a little bit of sandpaper first, and then we're going to Bondo the heck out of it. And I'm probably not going to use glazing putty. I'm probably going to use actual Bondo at this point, just because. Looks much better. Alright, I'm going to hit this with a light bit of sandpaper just to rough everything up, and then we are going to Bondo. So these cards, right? They're little rubber cards used for shaping. Can't seem to find those. And of course, can't be bothered to find them. So we're going to improvise with standard putty knife. Don't need too terribly much of this stuff. And I prefer to work in small batches. So about a golf ball sized amount. That's what they always say, right? And a little bit of this. Not much. The more hardener you use, the faster this kicks. So be aware. The reason I'm using Bondo instead of glazing putty is I want this to set up a little faster than glazing putty normally does. Because, of course, I am on a time crunch. I have a convention coming up, and I want to have this costume finished for. And this is the last part. And I'm primarily just concerned with where this seam is. It's not mixed nearly as well as it should. I think some air got into it, and it's a little thicker than I would like, as it's already started to set up. And unfortunately, because I'm putting a thicker coat on, there's going to be a lot of sanding on this thing. And we all know I hate sanding. So, it is what it is. So the scrapers I was talking about, right? They're rubberized, just flat card, basically. And it's nice because they conform to things. They take a curve way better. Putty knives don't curve. Just worried about getting everything in. And I will deal with everything else later. I also wanted a little more strength, so I went with the actual Bondo. For the bottom half, I'm going to use glazing putty. Alright. My neighbor doing yard work. So a lot of people tend to get stuck into using just a single material. No, if I'm doing this, I can only use this material. No. I'm using glazing putty and standard body filler because I need multiple techniques here. So don't just get stuck on, oh no, I have to 3D print the whole thing. No, you don't. Oh, I have to, you know, it won't work unless it's all done in oil paints. We will always make excuses for why we can't do the things we need to do. Just do the thing, and then the thing will be done. Now I'm going to leave it. I was going to keep going, keep messing with it, but no, I'm going to leave it and let it do its thing. While we wait, we're going to glue the gun body together. Sure, why not? I have rods already cut for the length I want all this stuff in. And all this is just 3D printed. I designed it, I printed it, and here we are. So I'm just going to glue everything together. I lost my cap for my glue, so I stuck a Tuscan blood spitter on it because, you know, use what you got, right? That was just stupid. Make sure we're lined up as best we can. Luckily, the rod holding that in place goes all the way through, so we don't really have to worry about it falling or doing anything weird. There's a bunch of excess glue on this, which I want to break off. But you don't need to stand around for that. So, easily distracted is today's comment. Make sure everything's closed up. I'm going to give this like an hour or so just to let it do its thing. And then we'll come back. So the first coat dried, sanded, right? Look at that. I'm not trying to have a full coverage with my Bondo here. I'm trying to fill layer lines, not cover them, right? So they're little like saw teeth, right? We want to fill in all of the little bits, but we don't really want to lose any of the top. So if you sand properly, you should always get back to barely seeing layer lines. If I hit this with a primer, it would probably be good enough to fill. I'm going to do one more coat. This time I'm going to use just glazing putty because I just want to smooth it. And we'll see where we're at from there. Yeah. I suppose that is the problem with trying to do something that doesn't have a good place to hold. Gotta worry about things falling. I'm not terribly worried about the inside. And I may hit it real quick with a little bit, but probably not. So I'm not worried about leaving fingerprints because the whole thing's gonna get sanded anyway. We're just trying to smooth, give us something to sand. I go through tubes of this stuff like it's nothing. So I'm also not terribly worried about the mating surface here, where the gun barrel hits the bell, just because I'm gonna have a rod that goes all the way through. So I would normally like here, I'm leaving that raw plastic because I want to be able to have somewhere positive to glue to. This doesn't matter nearly as much. And at some point in time, I'm probably going to make the whole thing out of metal anyway. Just not today. Definitely not for C2E2. But, you know, we'll try everything else. And there should be the last coat of glazing putty, or Bondo, or anything, really. The rest is just sanding. Make sure we get good coverage, and it may just about do it. Just tore through my glove. I'm doing a Bondoed finger. Neighbors, am I right? I like my neighbors. Pretty okay. They just happen to be loud today. That's alright. So we are going to line this up with this, drill a hole, and then glue it in place. Something I need to keep in mind is my fingers are directly behind this, so I need to move them. Just need it to mark. Now let's see where we're at, because this should be glued, and it is. Just like that onto there, maybe. That onto there. Handle goes right here. I may have to make it a little longer because this doesn't quite, well, I guess it fits. It'll be fine. This is just to glue this piece in place anyway. Seems to be up just a touch. Nice thing about 3D prints, if it's out of the way, I can just, you know. I need to lower it down a bit. And the best way to do that is going to be to drill. Walk my drill down. And that should be about perfect. I could probably go down just a little more. Let's see what we got. Because I want it. I'm going to flatten this off real quick. Because this has got kind of a bell to it. I'll be right back. A little bit of glue and we will be ready to rock and roll. Just let it do its thing. While I'm waiting, I'm going to sand this smooth, put in some filler, sand it smooth, you know, the usual. So that everything is glued, light sanding, prime, that should be it. I've also glued the handle on, which will also be light sanding and priming. Then we're going to put everything together, should be about it. Alright, so all I've done is I primed everything, and I slid everything onto the rod. I'm going to glue the handle real quick. Should take a few seconds. Doesn't take much because the rod really does a great job of holding everything in place. Now we're going to glue the scales on to figure out which way I want to put them. I think I want them this way. A little bit of glue. Same thing for the other side. A couple of spring clamps. In fact, we may even just use tape. Spring clamps. I want to get a little bit more forcefulness on this. A bit more spring than I'd like, but what are you going to do, right? Alright. Now, let it go. Let the glue dry. And we're on to paint. So you have everything glued and primered, right? Glued on pretty good. Since I'm going off of comic Harlock, I'm going to do light sanding. And then we're going to paint the bell a light blue. Luckily, I have a nice light blue right here. What we're going to use. The body itself is going to be silver, the tip's going to be silver. The connector piece and the barrel tip are all going to be silver. And I'm going to dry brush them. I want them very light. I don't want a solid silver. But we'll get to that when we get to that. First thing we're going to do is paint this a light blue. Fair warning, my garage is trashed. Christmas has happened, and everything has exploded. I just have not had time to film, let alone clean my garage. And I'm sure things will calm down as soon as the season's over, right? So, let's get to painting. So I took a moment, clean everything up. No reason to fight if I don't have to, right? I left the tape because I might need the tape. That's all the stuff we're going to be using later. So I am at the I want to dry brush stage. Dry brushing is super easy to do. Is this too large? No. Finding a comfortable position is the hard part. All right. Opening stupid bottles is the hard part. I'll be right back. So we're gonna do it up close now, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Some silver. Just wipe it on the plate till there's almost nothing left on the brush. And I want this mostly covered. But this does a real good job of hitting all the high spots. Make some decent texture, a little bit of crack and crevice areas. Make sure the low spots are low, right? I like how these look. What it also does is it makes the end here still dark, which will, once I add the other piece on, add just the slightest bit of a shadow line. Just a little more. It's the problem with dry brushing. It's always just a little more, and then you're like, oh, I went just a little too far. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now we're going to put this on the rod it belongs on and let it dry. I didn't want to paint on this because I didn't want to get any silver onto the actual rod. So then I set this somewhere just on its own. Annoyingly, I had cleaned everything up, so the spring clamps I were looking for were nowhere to be found because I put them away. Now we're going to do the same thing with this piece. This is the connector piece that connects the two rods together. This side, one side is going to be glued in permanently. The other side is going to be friction fit, just so I can take them apart and, you know, travel with them. So I don't want a super amount of tear. I just want a couple of spots where there's, you know, the dark is in the ridge still, and a little bit of texture here. I'm happy with that. And this also gets put somewhere to dry. Of course, the last piece to do is the gun. We're going to zoom back a bit. So let me reset, and we'll pick up from here. All right. So I'm going to start with the barrel itself, or the handle itself. Most of this is getting colored in. I just want to make sure I don't hit spots like right here, or the deep parts of the handle. So now the nice part about doing the front like this, with dry brushing as opposed to, I guess it's just paint brushing, as opposed to spraying, is I don't have to tape anything off. And now, like everything else, we just let it dry. And there are all three pieces for the Gravity Saber right now. Once these are dry, we will clear coat them and then assemble everything. So everything has had time to dry, right? I did add a black in acrylic because I want a foreshadow line. Next step, clear. I'm going to clear coat the entire thing, right? Except for the metal. But I am clear coating all of, I may even tape that off. I'll probably tape it off. But I'm clear coating all of the painted parts. I'm using an automotive clear. Let me grab it. Let me show you what I'm using. So everything gets a nice even coat of Duplicolor Perfect Match Clear. I'm a huge fan of this stuff. It dries super quick. It's hard as coffin nails, and it is fantastic. I'm going to give everything a real quick coat. I'm going to put it all together and we'll be done. So let me take care of that. Everything's been sprayed, cleared, it's good to go. Alright. So now, just gonna, the shaft is a hardened steel. I didn't mean to get it. They just didn't have aluminum in the right shape. So I've cut a bunch of little nicks into it. So when I put in the hot glue, it will have a mechanical bond, not a chemical bond. Same thing with this side. All right, now for this, we'll just untape it. The shaft goes to about here. So this doesn't really need anything to help fix it in because there's just enough variance that it's wedged in pretty good. I am not going to glue in the other side because, like I said, I want it to come apart and go back together. A little bit of tape right on the end should add just enough that this is now a friction fit. A little more. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. And there we have it. Harlock's Gravity Saber. I'm super happy with how it turned out. It's completely not unrealistic, but not useful. But it looks really, it's iconic. I love this thing. It's going to look fantastic in the holsters we made last week, or the other week. I'm not going to give myself a definitive deadline. It's going to look fantastic on the costume, which I'm debuting at C2E2 this year. I'm excited. He turned out fantastic. It's a little loose. Let me put a little more in. But I modeled the whole thing in Lightwave. I printed it out on my resin printer. Files are probably not going to be available just because, you know, I'm not 100% with them yet. I'm 90% with them. There we go. Nope. A little too much. And we just cracked. Damn it. Hey. Look at this. Glue. Resin's super brittle. I eventually want to make this thing out of metal. But that's way down the road. My machining skills are not up to snuff yet to make this thing out of metal. Yet. I'll get there. Outros are tough, right? Intros are tough. The whole thing's a little difficult and annoying. Carefully. There. See? Just like new. So there it is. Harlock's Gravity Saber. It's neat. I like it. It's fantastic. It comes apart. I can store it, put it back together for the costume. Thanks for coming along with me on this one. This is pretty alright. This is your kind of thing, if you're into watching people make nifty stuff. And consider liking and subscribing and all that happy jazz. Other than that, I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for stopping by.